Hello, everybody out there in radio land. Y'all listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. This is a weekly program where we come onto your radio dial or internet. You might be listening to us that way. And we talk about what's going on here in the Kalamazoo area, the state of Michigan, so-called United States, and the rest of the world from a working class perspective. As always, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of Western Michigan University or 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. So we're going to be kind of just starting right up in today's show at a full sprint. We are joined now by a guest. Welcome to the show. It's really great to have you. This is Roland from the WMU Divestment Coalition. Roland, how are you doing today?
Andy, I'm doing really well, actually. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, fantastic. So we're gonna kind of just get get right into the substance of what we want to talk about here. So I'm really glad to have you on because I kind of wanted to give. We've been reporting on the stories about local resistance to the genocide in Gaza, as well as the encampment that was active a few weeks ago here on campus. And since then, like a number of other universities, the administration did enter into active negotiations with the Palestine coalition. I know I saw some reporting earlier that kind of it seemed like there's been some bumps in the road, as it were. And I'm really glad to have an opportunity to have you come on and kind of just give an update to the community about what is going on as far as your coalition's efforts to get your demands met. And again, why don't we'll kind of start from the beginning. If you could talk a little bit about the genesis from encampment to the negotiations, what those initial demands were, how that progressed, and maybe some of the more recent stumbling blocks that you've had with the university.
Yeah, definitely. The encampment here on campus got started when, well, I had been in New York actually at Columbia's campus the first day of their encampment when they set up the Gaza Solidarity encampment there, the day of the congressional hearing. And I was there for the first few days, and I was coming back here, as I was driving home from New York to Kalamazoo, I was reaching out to various organizers and trying to find people that I could work with and people who were already involved organizing on the ground here in Kalamazoo to kind of put together a group of people and get a similar protest going here at Western Michigan because a lot of folks had been doing organizing and doing protesting pretty unsuccessfully for a while. Small scale things, but without much impact on the administration, without getting any kind of response from President Montgomery or the Board of Trustees or the President's cabinet. And so we wanted to, make our voices heard. And so I ended up finding a strong ally actually in Marissa Wagner, who is the co-chair of KNOW, Kalamazoo Nonviolent Opponents of War, and we worked together and got a bunch of students together and set up this encampment where we had faculty coming out and alumni coming out and a bunch of students coming out working together to make our voices heard. And the administration eventually did agree to have sit-down meetings with us, and we formed a joint admin student committee with four of the president's cabinet members and four students. Um, well, three students and myself, a recent graduate. I graduated the same day we put the encampment up here at
Hey,
campus.
congratulations, by the
Thank
way.
you.
Yeah.
So three students and one alumni, and then four administrators. And we agreed to break encampment and have these sit downs and start trying to negotiate with them to talk about what a divestment process would look like, putting out a statement calling for a ceasefire, calling for an end to the genocide. And we've been having these recurring meetings trying to get some real serious steps taken, some real serious action on the half of the university. And we thought that Western was ready to kind of be at the forefront of this because we were at the time one of the only universities in the country who got to that point where we were able to have that meeting and not have any kind of police violence or escalation and have administration really willing to sit down and listen to us.
Okay, great. And before we continue on with that, I also want to introduce Marissa, who just got in the studio. Marissa, how are you doing today? Oh, good. Yeah. So if you could just maybe, Marissa, if you could introduce yourself, and then maybe if I could have you kind of just leapfrog off of what Roland was talking about. And I know kind of recently hitting something of a stumbling block with the university. I know there was some criticism of the lack of transparency and particularly involvement from President Montgomery. I was wondering if maybe you could, well, one, introduce yourself, and then maybe if you could speak to that a little bit for the listeners.
Sure. Marissa Wagner, chair of KNOW, Kalamazoo Nonviolent Points of War. I'm also a senior here at Western in the computer science program, and was one of the co-organizers of the WMU camp. Yeah, lots of setbacks recently. Initially, I was feeling very optimistic and that they did want to have an honest collaboration, that they were, uh, willing to work with us. And that's not to say that the administrative members on the committee aren't willing to do that, but at the end of the day, it comes down to President Montgomery. He calls the shots, and he's the one who was pushing back against the language of the statement without even wanting to meet with us to discuss it. And we spent 5 weeks discussing it back and forth, and only for him to just completely ignore all those negotiations. So pretty disappointing.
So the big stumbling block is that we wanted to put out this statement from the university before we moved on to the real kind of meat and potatoes of these issues, where we want to talk about what divestment would look like on campus and what possibly other actions we could take. We floated the ideas of Western sponsoring Palestinian students whose universities had been destroyed, of offering a scholarship to WMU alum who'd been injured in Gaza, Abed al-Aziz, and WMUK actually did a really great sort of profile on him. But this statement ended up kind of taking so long and so much effort, and we said the university didn't want to use the word genocide, they didn't want to use the word ceasefire. We were willing to meet them. We said, okay, if we can't do that, let's use specific numbers, right? Let's use hard facts. This is how many Palestinians have been killed. This is how many Palestinian children have been killed. This is how many universities have been destroyed. Let's put those numbers in there. Let's condemn the violence unequivocally, right? We condemn these actions. And in the end, none of that made it into the statement. We'd been working together to draft this. We'd been reviewing things together. And the final draft got sent to the members of the committee um, about 15 minutes before it got sent out, finished to everyone on campus. So we were given the email like, here you go, here's a chance to review it. And then 15 minutes later, before anyone had even opened their email, it was out in the world. And we didn't think that it really said much of anything at all.
Yeah, kind of just bouncing off of that, I think this is something we're seeing at a lot of not just universities, but even just institutions where there's this acknowledgement that they have to kind of acknowledge the violence that's going on there, but there's like a lack of kind of specificity.
Mhm.
I was kind of curious, just as folks who have been on the ground organizing the stuff, like, do you think part of that reticence is that kind of this necessity to, because having been involved in Kalamazoo politics, there's this very like, you don't want to rattle the cages or offend anybody accidentally, but there's also the pressure of like a lot of the Zionist lobby. Kind of what's your read on why there's this trepidation from the university to tell it like it is?
Mhm.
I think it more than likely all comes down to money. They're worried about what funding they're gonna lose. And I mean, as we now know, they have tons of money invested in BlackRock, and I'm sure not ethical investments, and with that comes ethical investors. So
I will say that the reasons we've been given in our meetings and our face-to-face conversations is because I said something similar. I said I know that it's scary to risk investors and risk donations by taking a strong political stand, but it's the right thing to do. And the response I got, well, it's not just about money. It's about, respecting all viewpoints. And there's lots of different viewpoints about this issue, and it's very complicated. And taking a stand might make some people feel uncomfortable. And I don't think that that argument holds much water, to be honest, because there's, a lot of viewpoints about the war in Ukraine. A lot of folks think that we should, not stand with Ukraine and let Russia do what they want. But the university released a statement. The headline of was, "We stand with the people of Ukraine." Well, there's lots of multiple viewpoints about everything. That doesn't mean that they're good or worth your time or consideration. I don't consider people who support a genocide or stand by passively letting a genocide happen to have a viewpoint worth our time.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think too, it's again, I think what we really witnessed the last couple months is kind of the divorcing of this kind of this default mode of kind of turning a blind eye to what a lot of the what the IDF has been doing over the years too, like the very stark reality of what they've been carrying out in Gaza since October 7th. It's become very difficult to ignore, and I was kind of just thinking, like in that context, with the university, kind of where they're at. How do y'all plan to strategize and proceed further? What are you asking from the community, kind of as far as next steps go? Because I know kind of haven't been part of stuff like this before. You kind of strategize around like if the university agrees to X, Y, or Z, you do this, and if they are more reticent, maybe you do this, and I'm kind of curious, kind of what y'all strategy is moving forward, and kind of how you would like the community to mobilize going forward.
Yeah, that's a great question. So our big thing is a lot of students right now want to stop having these meetings with administration and kind of dissolve the committee that we've been working with because they feel that it's sort of intentionally wasting our time, and that no matter how maybe nice we all play and whatever pleasantries we exchange, it's not going to accomplish anything. Personally, I believe that there are really good people at this university, at this institution, and I want to keep working with them to try to get them to understand where we're coming from. But for the meantime, the biggest thing is we're organizing more events. We're trying to get people to speak up in public spaces. We're going to get as many students as we can to the Board of Trustees meeting that's this Thursday, the 27th. I'm trying to get people to sign up for that. You can find it online, and you can go sign up for public comment, come and speak your mind and make your voice heard and let them know what's going on, but also send emails, call in. Like, every student, alum, faculty, and Kalamazoo community member has a vested interest in what WMU does and says and how they act. And I think that if we all keep speaking up and letting them know that this is something that matters and that we want to fight to be on the right side of history, that's significant. And we have a lot of great events planned and coming up, and we're looking forward especially to getting a lot of students back in the fall to really get some numbers behind us here.
yeah, I think the biggest challenge has been mobilizing during the summer with all the students gone. So I think right now, while students are gone, it's really important for the Kalamazoo community to show up for us and show that, it's not just these few students who care about this issue, it's, the broader Kalamazoo community.
Fantastic. And so I know y'all have some events planned coming up. So I know you mentioned the 27th, but I know there's a few things. I know KNOW has been organizing some movie screenings. So I just want to kind of give y'all the floor to talk about some of the things that y'all have planned coming up next few weeks that people out in the community can come and engage in.
Yeah, so tried to put out a calendar of events for June, but I think it's a little overwhelming for people with events every day. So we are re-strategizing and targeting the student orientation days, which are the first day, which is the longest day, is Mondays and Thursdays. So, you don't even have to come with us. Like if you just want to show up on campus and like hand out some pamphlets on what's going on, or just talk to people about what we're doing. That is super helpful too. It's really just spreading the word, and especially with the new students, because Western's admission rate has been steadily declining. And again, we need to hit them where it hurts in the pocket. So I think the biggest thing is just applying as much pressure as we can until the rest of the student body gets back in the fall. And
And we do regularly post updates on Instagram, on Facebook with all of the different events that we are hosting and we want people to come participate in. There's, rallies, there's marches, there's yoga in the park. We did the movie screenings, like you said, which are really great and often really powerful, informative films. So there's a lot of great options for folks to get involved and to learn if they, are thinking about getting involved but don't really know kind of where to start or don't know too much about the issue.
Fantastic. And I guess I just want to keep you both for just a couple more minutes. So it's been a while since I bumped into most of you. I think probably the encampment. It's
I think we saw each other at the potluck.
the potluck. Yes, that's right. As a lot has happened since then.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of curious as folks who've been like really directly involved in organizing, not just even like attending rallies and stuff. What is your sense of since uh a couple weeks ago we've had Biden come out and try to offer to describe the most tangible ceasefire plan to be promptly ignored by Netanyahu. Um but we've seen that. We've seen some back and forth at other colleges and universities across the country. There's been some good things, some bad things. I'm kind of curious of just kind of what your sense is as somebody who is in the movement right now, and maybe even if you've been in contact with any other like folks organizing at colleges and universities, like what's the general temperature around things as you're organizing moving forward?
Um, so I think that a lot of people are getting impatient. Maybe there's this sense that this is still going on, and every day these bombs are falling and children are dying while we're kind of dithering over what language to put in a statement of condemnation, or whether or not this form of protest is better than this form of protest. And it feels like people in power are kind of waiting for this to all just blow over, waiting for this to kind of settle down, for young activists to lose steam. And people aren't losing steam. If anything, more and more people are getting involved. There's more and more momentum behind this. And while it might seem quiet, I know, for example, on Western's campus, without a visible encampment, it seems quieter and calmer. But that doesn't mean that people are giving up or aren't still hopeful. A lot of people are, furious, rightfully so, about everything that's going on and the lack of action taken from our country and from, the local on the local level from people's individual universities. We've been in touch with organizers and activists at different universities in Michigan, and yeah, people are really trying to kind of reconfigure their approaches, but they're not giving up. And I personally am still incredibly hopeful. You can't give up hope in this, no matter how dark and useless it might seem at times to kind of be fighting for this cause that no one wants to talk about. But it's definitely not over yet.
yeah, I'll just piggyback off that. I think a lot of times it is easy to feel discouraged in this movement because, we kind of feel like we're screaming into the void and nothing's happening, but things are happening, and it may not seem like huge things at a time, but these things are building up and collecting, and it's going to explode eventually. So we just can't give up and have to keep applying the pressure, keep showing up to all the actions, keep writing your representatives, your university administration.
So I kind of just want to leave with a little thought before I let y'all go to get on with your day. Just another reminder to my listeners on the show. You know, I've been doing this show close to 8 years now. And we've talked about Palestine and Gaza many, many times over the years. And this last year, since October 7th, I have never seen this unprecedented level of support and honestly, like recognition of what is actually going on in Palestine and its status as a colonized state. And it's the level of just very like radiant and visible public support is something I would not have imagined even just 2 or 3 years ago. And all the young people who have been watching this stuff, who have been sharing it, shouting out loud, and people like you two who have been actively organizing around organizing around the opposition to these atrocities. Y'all are directly responsible for making that sea change happen. And as somebody who's been out here in the community doing bits and pieces for a while, I really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you both for putting the time and energy in. And I know how much time and energy it takes to do stuff like this. So really, like, thank you so much. And please, everybody, keep track with what's going on in the community. That's the WMU Divestment Coalition, and then you can also follow KNOW. Is
It's
specific page?
KNOW, Know Your Humanity.
Know Your
on
Humanity.
Instagram and Facebook. There's also the WMU Divestment Coalition on Instagram. Yeah, I was gonna say we got to plug those pluggables.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. All right. Well, solidarity once again, and thank you both for taking time out of your day to talk to us on the program.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having us. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, everybody, we're going to take a quick little break. When we come back, I will be talking a little bit about Juneteenth, and well, we're going to see how many local companies kind of put their money where their mouth is and ask the question, who is giving their workers holiday pay? Hello again, everybody out there in Radio Land. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. So we're going to be talking about Juneteenth in just a second. I think I wanted to start with a quick hit and give y'all some good news. So this is a long time story, and I'm sure Lawrence is going to join us in like 5 minutes, so he might end up having some things to say about this as well. But Julian Assange is free. Oh my gosh, can you believe it? And depending on where you've been sitting over the years, some I know a lot of people are still kind of sour at him for what happened in the 2016 election. And so on and so forth. But we should remember Julian Assange was being prosecuted for revealing war crimes perpetrated by the U.S. military, the U.S. government. And as of yesterday, Julian Assange has been able to accept a plea deal, and he is going to be going home to his family in Australia. I'm just gonna kind of read real quick from Democracy Now! His wife Stella talked about she has not known him since she met him when he was under house arrest. Democracy Now! Has also interviewed him over the years, from when he wore an ankle bracelet to when he got political asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy. So going on, Amy is talking to Anthony Lowenstein, an Australian journalist, and here's what he had to say about Julian being released. The release of Julian is a big story for obvious reasons. I think a lot of Australians for years have felt incredibly angry with the fact that an Australian citizen, Julian Assange, is being prosecuted in the US under the Espionage Act. he's not an American citizen. He's barely spent any time in America. And I think it goes to the heart of how many Australians feel about the relationship between the US and Australia. Often, Australians feel like we're, and I agree with this, a client state of the US. This is because of joining every single war in the Middle East, wars in Vietnam. We have a massive US intelligence base, Pine Gap, in the center of Australia. Australia really is not an independent nation. And the idea of the US prosecuting Julian for journalism, which was, as Trevor rightly says, what so many decent journalists do every day, speaking to sources inside government and elsewhere, was an outrage. And I think for many years, a lot of Australians, the majority in fact, wanted him to come home. I'm obviously glad that the current government has done that, mostly behind the scenes. For many, many years, the former government, much more conservative one, had no interest in trying to get Julian Assange home. We're speaking about the Australian government here. And I think that this goes to the heart also, because I've been knowing WikiLeaks since 2006, when they first launched, started to get to know Julian then from the beginning when he launched in Melbourne. And really, from the beginning, his whole idea was that so much of mainstream journalism was just too close to those in power. And I really do feel, however you feel about Julian Assange, he is right on the money with that. And excuse me. And as anyone who is a journalist or a citizen or anyone interested in accountability, there's really no media organization in my adult life that has released more vital documents about the state of global power than WikiLeaks. From Guantanamo to Iraq, Afghanistan, Palestine, the drug war, so many documents which you can access free on their website. And I think that goes to the heart of why many Australians, in fact, feel very proud. Because in some ways, in the last 2 decades, there are two major global figures of media interest from Australia. Rupert Murdoch, who's obviously very, very right, and Julian Assange, who is obviously a very, very different person. So there's elation in Australia today, and rightly so. And I will also say there is elation in the studio, and there should be elation across the country for people who believe in the freedom of the press. Because as a stark reminder, had Julian Assange been extradited and imprisoned in the United States for, again, reporting a war crime perpetrated by the US military, that would have set a humongously dangerous precedent. That would have told everyone from the underground indie journalist in the New York Times that if you report on these things, we can take it as a national security issue and prosecute you. It would have muzzled the media from being able to report on these important things. And it's like I can think of numerous the reports on Abu Ghraib, the disclosure, the drone report, the Afghanistan report that came out a couple years ago and kind of revealed what a huge boondoggle that war was, which I think in a lot of ways led to us finally pulling out of Afghanistan. The Pentagon Papers going back to the 70s, which a lot of people credit for getting us out of Vietnam. All of these things would be or would have been illegal had Julian Assange been prosecuted, extradited, and imprisoned here in the United States for telling the rest of the world what the US was up to. So this is a big day. This is a good day to celebrate freedom of the press. And I hope Julian Assange gets to enjoy some time with his family. This guy has been basically under like real arrest and house arrest for like over 10 years, I think. So he's actually gonna go see the sun a little bit. And it'll be interesting too to see, before captivity really started deteriorating, Julian Assange, he was a really important thought leader when it came to free press issues and the dynamics of geopolitics. So maybe after a little bit of R&R, it would be interesting to see if Julian Assange will reemerge into the spotlight, or who knows? I mean, he's done enough. If he wants to spend the rest of his life on an Australian beach, he can do that. Okay, we're gonna take a quick little break. Come back. Should be joining my co-host soon. We're gonna talk a little bit about some local issues. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org, your only source for political revolution. Quick reminder, you can find us online. Media Cyphers Kalamazoo is on Facebook and YouTube. And you can also find the Media Cyphers podcast. It's recently voted or made the number 4 podcast in Kalamazoo by Podfeed or FeedPod. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit of a Luddite. I didn't even know this happened until one of my wider colleagues pointed it out to me, and I'm like, that's really neat. It's a major award. So yeah, apparently people listen to us, so that's good to know. But you can find that award-winning podcast on uh, on any your local podcasting app or whatever podcast app that you use. We will be right back. This is Media Cyphers. Keep your dial locked. All right, everybody, we are back. This is Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. Lawrence, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing quite well. Um, I got over a long work week. I was thinking it was like 68 hours or something last week.
Oh man.
But got a little bit of rest the weekend, so recharged, ready to go. We had a really good interview before he came
Oh,
on. That was again, if anybody missed it, that'll be online. But yeah, it's some of the organizers here with the WMU Divestment Coalition, giving us some
yeah.
really cool updates.
Absolutely support the divestment, uh, uh, boycott, divestment, sanction movement. I definitely support them and everything they got going on. But shameless plug, just real quick, we were rated number 4 out of 40 for best podcast in Kalamazoo.
Yes.
Is that
Mhm.
is that true?
That is true. And yeah, so it was off of Podfeed or no Feed Pod or hold on. See, I was kind of explaining this before the break, is I'm such a Luddite that I didn't even really know what this was. And I had this pointed out by somebody, a colleague here at the station pointed this out to me. And I did want to talk a little bit more at length about it. And just, yeah, I guess before we get back in the news. And again, I don't want to spend too much time just like patting ourselves on the back. But I think this is important to recognize that our work is being recognized. So, what this is, it's basically a list from this kind of national yeah, FeedSpot. Sorry, FeedSpot is the name of it. This national kind of platform that kind of gives people the 411 on like what are some of the best podcasts in either your area or around a particular topic. And it was their list of the top 40 podcasts in Kalamazoo. And when they originally told me, I thought it was 40, not 4. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. I mean, it's right about,
Hmm.
but like, no, it's number 4.
Right.
And that is, you know, again, that is a really big deal because there are other podcasts out there in the community with like even ones that might have necessarily more resources or a different or bigger following, but um this organization has ranked us pretty high up. The only folks above us are the KFR Morning Show, the Rocker Morning Show, and Ken Lanfear, who, if you're not familiar with, he's kind of a Kalamazoo institution unto itself. He's been giving us the news for years. Love Ken's show. Maybe not quite as spicy as ours, but and also congratulations to I know Mark is a friend of mine, and he's number 2 on the list there. So, but yeah, it's this is really the little engine that could. We don't we're not part of a commercial radio station. We're not part of an established organization like a church. The number 6 podcast, and I don't know, this just kind of tickles me a little bit. Garrett Soldano, you may remember him. He ran for office. He's kind of a right wing ideologue. And he has a podcast, and the Grassroots Army Project or podcast, and they're ranked number 6.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm, mm.
I don't know if they know about us, but I'm sure he would be very sour if he found some long-haired Marxist ran a show that's ranked higher than his.
Mm. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
all I'm saying is that we we've been talking about putting out more content, like behind the scenes. We've been talking about putting out more content, doing visual as well as audio. Uh, you know, we've been talking about expanding, and if we're number 4, if we actually start doing the stuff that we've been talking about behind the scenes, I feel like we could be number 1. So
absolutely.
that's my goal for the rest of this year is to try to get us to get to number 1.
Yeah, no, for real. And
Yeah,
I'd say it's also like it is vindicating a bit. It's hard not to get necessarily imposter syndrome. It's hard to know whether or not you're just shouting analysis into the void. And apparently, it's a
yeah.
very emphatic no. We hear you. So I really, again, there's some thank yous that need to happen. Lawrence, I gotta thank you. You've been with me since I think the beginning, almost the beginning at least. And you've been my most consistent co-host. Our best episodes are always the one that we're on and able to really dive in and do interviews and analyze the issues. So like we couldn't have gotten here without you. Want to say that. Also,
I think I joined right before I started when we had the other name.
yeah. Mhm.
And that was during the Obama administration. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
been a while.
Yeah, yeah. Also, big thank you to Nora, who's been a consistent co-host before and after they moved to Kalamazoo. And they always come correct with like the data points and the homework. And there's also a
Yeah,
lot of
Nora's
people.
Nora's awesome.
Yeah, a lot of people behind the scenes. Emily has helped us a lot throughout the years. They actually did the graphic design for a new logo that you may have heard them in an episode or two, delivering some delightful analysis of their own. Um, and I also I gotta thank Glenn. I gotta thank all the directors here at the station. They've been so supportive over the years, especially like this youngest crop. Like again, what was fun? Apparently, there is a bumper running on the station for us, congratulating our show for making it on this list. And especially a show that can be as challenging and controversial as ours. I couldn't do this without the student support. I could not do this without the support of the people here at the station. And I owe them everything for letting me be able to stay on air, rattle some cages, even sometimes rattle some cages right here at the university. And I also want to emphasize, I hope to keep this going as long as I can. I would love to get some younger blood in here. If you're a student and you got some opinions, I'd love to recruit you to come on the show. Because yeah, I think like the next step is really, I really want to just keep building up. I want to see if we can get like a broader team to be able to kind of show up to more events and stuff. Because again, this has been basically done. Um, well, what's the word I'm looking for? We got to number 4 in a very DIY way. It's really just been a handful of us. We read too much and we watch too much underground media, and we decided to have a show about it. And
We
uh,
we are a bunch of political junkies, uh, commentators, sitting around dropping bars, dropping
yeah,
bars in
yeah.
analysis. That's the whole reason why we're called Media Cyphers. So
Yes.
so yeah, I just want to shout out you, Andy. you're the one that wanted this whole thing in the first place. You took the first step. So I just wanted to give you your flowers because you've been holding it down. Now, with that being said, we also have some more good news that we want to talk about. And also all the other hosts that came, like Luke and others who also come bless the show. We can't
Mhm.
forget about y'all. So many more people that we can name, and if you don't hear us in this shout out, please know that we haven't forgot about you, David, our friend David, and others.
Mhm.
But the one thing that I wanted to get to, we talk about press freedom, and uh, we talk about press freedom a lot. We talk about people who journalists that need to get talked about more. And this person we talked about on the show before, Julian Assange. There's some news about him. Um, he's going to be if you haven't heard the news, Julian Assange is basically going to have time served uh, um with his settlement in his case. Uh, he will not be extradited to the United States, and he will end up going back to Australia, um, where he's from. It's great news. Today is a good day.
Yeah. I talked a little bit about it before he came on, but like, I gotta say, like, when I first heard it, my fiance told me when we were in bed, and I was like, "Is this a prank?" No, no. Like, I don't know if I'm just like that weird. It's
If
like I
you're
can't believe good
jaded,
news. No, it's like, but like, um, yeah, it's been really hard to believe. I think just because, like, the government was out to get him for so long. And I think it's kind of, one other thing I think is interesting to mention is like the mechanism by which this happened, which was America they still wanted him extradited. A lot of people thought if Julian was ever going to be free, it was going to be because America would drop the case. Um, what effectively happened is he worked out a plea bargain with the British courts to stay out of jail, stay out of extradition, which I almost wonder, like, again, the world is a very different place than it was about 10 years ago when Julian Assange first had to, like, under house arrest. And you're seeing a lot of countries, Britain, Australia, who, as I said earlier, have kind of used to being client states of the United States, being like, actually, we're going to call you out on this BS. And, Australia in particular, they've gotten a much stronger movement over the last years of like, hey, he's one of ours. Y'all need to bring him home. That you can't send him to the United States, etc. And all of the grassroots folks who are involved in that, everybody who's been going to those demonstrations in Washington and stuff over the years, you're very much the reason that Julian Assange is free, and also why going forward the broader press will be able to work will not have to work under the threat of getting thrown in the clinker in the U.S.
yeah. I just want to remind, and also just you probably said this, but let's also remind everybody he went to jail or he was stuck in the embassy because he did the crime of journalism. That was his crime. He didn't he didn't shoot anybody, right? Chelsea Manning uh gave them gave them gave Julian Assange the information about how the United States was doing war crimes in Afghanistan, how they were killing innocent civilians, how they killed innocent civilians, and then turned around and double tapped the first responders. And that is a war crime. What Israel's doing in Gaza and in the West Bank, we were doing very similar things and worse. Uh, and because Julian Assange showed that we were breaking international law, he became a pariah and he needed to be silenced. So he had to stay in an embassy. Uh, he had to stay in an embassy to survive, and then they locked him. They did lock him up. He's in a British prison now. and they were trying to indict this man and give him over 100 counts for telling the truth.
Yep, absolutely, 100%. Couldn't have said it better myself. And yeah, again,
Like,
you got to think beyond. It's like, yeah, the implications for Julian Assange. I mean, it's good for him. He's going to get to see his family. He's going to go back home. But yeah, the implications for just press freedom more broadly. This is a big win. This is, and we haven't had a ton of wins lately, so it's really good to see.
oh yeah, absolutely, 100%.
So I think with this next one, I wanted to talk a little bit about Juneteenth. And so the angle I kind of want to focus on this year, actually, if you tuned in last week, you heard one of our greatest hits. We were talking about played a rerun from us talking about kind of corporatization of Juneteenth. But we're a couple years out now from when it was made a federal holiday, and a big question that was in my mind, are employers embracing it as a national holiday, i.e., are they offering PTO, that's paid time off, or holiday pay? And I wanted to start with some quick data from an Axios article talking about the national level, and then I actually did a little bit of homework trying to dig up some information about some of the big employers here in town. Um, so as of right now, in 2024, 41% of private employers are observing Juneteenth as a paid holiday. Now it has grown fairly dramatic. So in 2021, that was only 9%. It jumped to 33, then 39, and now it's at 41. But that's still a majority of private employers across the country who are not observing Juneteenth as a paid holiday. Um,
59% of employers, not 59% of private employers say, nah, y'all gotta come to work. On this
yeah,
day of
yeah.
freedom, on this day of freedom and liberation, y'all gotta come to work.
Yeah, precisely. Or if you work like a healthcare job like mine, where there's really not such a thing as a day off, you at least offer people, basically holiday pay in most companies is double time. So I was kind of curious, what do those numbers look like here in the community? And so I got a lot of responses. I got some not responses, and I'll kind of break down just like who the most notable companies are. And uh, a lot of the bigger ones have not responded to us yet. So I'm still waiting to hear back from Pfizer. I'm still waiting to hear back from Zoetis. Still waiting to hear back from some big manufacturing companies here in Kalamazoo, CLS, CalSec, uh, and I also just wanted to emphasize too, not responding in a timely manner. These are very large corporations. They have the resources to respond to a quick email from a local journalist, and that again, that is a choice. So I don't know with 100% certainty whether or not these companies offered PTO or holiday pay on Juneteenth, but what I will tell you is that those companies, when asked, had nothing to say. So I think
Um,
that's
I I
revealing in
worked
itself.
for I worked for their Zoetis and Pfizer's competitor, Perrigo. And Perrigo did has a thing where they have a policy where they call floating holidays. You get two floating holidays, which is uh whenever you want to just take a day off, they give you these 2 days throughout the year where you can take a day off. But I don't think, from my recollection, Martin Luther King Day and Juneteenth were days that you did not get off. But you can use your floating holiday to take those days off. But I do find it very interesting that certain holidays like Martin Luther King Day or Juneteenth, those days which we should be celebrating freedom and restitution, workers' rights, um, and liberation and things of that nature, I feel like it is kind of a slap in the face that these private corporations that would not be in existence without the labor, a lot of times the free labor that their ancestors forced others to do, um, wouldn't exist if it wasn't for their workers. And I feel that it's kind of a slap in the face to workers and to Americans in general when we are not observing just acknowledging why the holiday exists in the first place, but two, uh not letting your workers get a day off. Like, get that day off. Like, it's not going to hurt your profits for them to take that day off.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a couple other observations here. You know, I got so I did this two ways. I cold called companies. I emailed them. I also just kind of asked, my friends and acquaintances in the communities. It's like, did you have time off or holiday pay on Juneteenth? And I got some pretty interesting stories. That it's just I will file under white nonsense. I
Oh,
heard
wow.
somebody's because apparently there hasn't really been a lot of education among some of the older white workers about what Juneteenth is. So I heard someone say, "Oh, my boss thought it was a Jamaican holiday." Uh,
Oh, wow.
they had to have it explained what Juneteenth was all about. Um,
I
I
mean,
had. Oh, go ahead.
it's not surprising, man. We live in a country where they don't want to teach, they don't want us to teach history. At the same time, they also are rolling back not just workers' rights, child labor rights, and like we have a country where we are working backwards from our conclusion to gain the fact of why we have the rights there in the first place.
I also wanted to mention that so one of the biggest employers in this town are our local colleges and universities. And I was going to say it, Western Michigan University, where I am currently broadcasting out of, did not offer their workers PTO or holiday pay for Juneteenth. I hope if there's any administrators within earshots, what's up with that?
Hmm.
What, dude, come on. What? And I also say that too because, like, especially the universities really leaned into a lot of performative stuff. So I'm gonna call out K College a little bit, but they did respond to our email. Uh, and what they had to say, this comes from the director of news and social media. Juneteenth is kind of a big deal for us. Employees don't automatically get holiday pay or an additional day of PTO, although our Black Faculty and Staff Association has planned a picnic the past few years, which includes soul food games, dancing, and a DJ. Okay. Now, first of all, good for them on that, and I'm glad that there's something going on K College's campus. But I don't know that in the frame of a question, are you giving your workers holiday pay on Juneteenth? That sounds like the Juneteenth equivalent of giving your workers a pizza party. That's not how that
Oh,
works.
it absolutely is.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. It's not
Uh,
like not to throw stones at K College, but there's the thing that bothers me the most about this in particular. We as not in the general public, but our country doesn't want to teach about Juneteenth, doesn't want to speak about Juneteenth or the reason why it became a federal holiday. I mean, to talk about the restitution, talk about reparations, talk about our past. We It's like that family that doesn't want to we treat that holiday like how you said, like it is a pizza party, and we should celebrate it in name only without actually putting action behind it, without
yeah.
actually the actions that needs to be put behind it. Things like the George Floyd Policing Accountability Act, the restoring of the Voting Rights Act, making sure that uh, doing things like what Derek Hamilton was talking about closing the racial wealth gap, which it but with like baby bonds and things of that nature, um, making sure that we talk about the injustices that got us here and how we fix it. The
Yeah,
fact that yes, it's one thing to talk about, it's one thing to talk about Juneteenth and celebrate it as a holiday, but if we're not talking about why it's needed, then it is a problem when we are only celebrating it in name only and we're not really getting to the meat and potatoes of it.
yeah,
But that's
and
my
like
opinion.
holiday pay and stuff, that's as about as meat and potatoes as you can get. That has
Yeah.
a direct impact on working class people all across the country. And yeah, it is again, what we're seeing from companies is this kind of almost insulting. It's obviously like they won't offer holiday pay or paid time off unless there's an overwhelming demand for it. And in the case of Juneteenth, I'm seeing so many companies that will like it's all over the social media. We celebrate Juneteenth. Hooray, the liberation of slaves. Okay, what are you paying your workers? Um, and it's like I so credit where credit's due. All of the kind of public organizations, so the library, KPS schools, the city of Kalamazoo County, they all offered PTO for the holiday, and also a couple of private organizations worth shouting out for doing the right thing. Bell's Brewing offered their employees holiday pay our PTO on Juneteenth, as did PNC Bank, um, as well as who else? Well, Loaves and Fishes. So there were some organizations out there doing the right thing. I think like probably the most disappointing thing though is seeing a lot of these public sector institutions just not stepping up to the plate. So healthcare was one that really struck me. Portage did not respond, but Bronson, I found from a Bronson worker, did not offer their employees in it either. Both of the uh, so some of y'all again, this is a working class talk show. I'm not ashamed to say sometimes I'll go donate plasma to get some extra scratch. I got a wedding coming up, all this other stuff. And
Hey, you
um,
need the money.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But both Biomats and Octapharma, neither of them offered that to their employees. And if you've been in Kalamazoo long enough, there's two really big companies that do in-home healthcare, Residential Opportunities Incorporated, Community Living Options. I did not hear back from ROI, although if you drive past their headquarters on Park Street, you notice they have a big Juneteenth flag flying. So I assume they might have paid their employees. The company that I work for, though, they also put out one of those performative posts, but I do not see a difference on my paycheck. So, yeah, it was,
I mean, yeah,
yeah.
it
To
is.
the
It is. Go ahead.
to their credit, when I reached out to them about it, they did offer to have a dialogue slash conversation with me, which is still pending. But yeah, I don't know. I'll tell you what. If that story develops, I will give you all an update. But as of right now, the company I work for is not offering me holiday pay for Juneteenth. So oh, I also got to say on that note of like perform companies doing performative stuff, probably the wackiest story I heard when I kind of solicited data from folks is I had a friend who their employer posted a picture of them without permission to celebrate Juneteenth And they also did not offer them holiday pay or PTO, which, as you can imagine, made my friend understandably irritated.
Wait,
But
wait, 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 wait. I'm assuming that this was a black person that they posted.
yes, that is correct.
So your company posted a black person as in, hey, we have black workers that work here.
Yeah, look at them
But
go
but right,
without
look
holiday
at
pay.
this black employee that we have. We're very diverse.
Hmm.
But without we're not giving them the day off and we're not giving them holiday pay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's kind of well, yeah, that's a oh man. Me and that come it didn't you did it without my permission? You used my face and likeness without my permission. Oh,
Yeah,
oh
what the
yeah,
heck, man?
yeah.
uh,
Oh no, we would have problems. There would be problems that day.
oh yeah, no. So yeah, I'll link to that data in the notes as well as some of what I found just trying to research local companies. But yeah, who knows? Maybe next year we'll be up to 50 or 60 something percent. As I mean, those are rookie numbers. You got to pump those numbers up. And just to kind of re-emphasize point, like you can post as many little things on social media as you want, and I mean, it's not, I mean, it's good to do that, but unless your company is treating it like a paid holiday, you are not giving your workers or that holiday the respect that it is due.
Also, folks, do some reading, do some research. There are multiple books that are on Juneteenth. We'll put some in the doobly doo below. But understand that even after uh Juneteenth, July 19th, there were still 250,000 people that were still enslaved because after that date. Because some of the states like Iowa and some others in Delaware, they didn't succeed from the Union, so they were still allowed to have slaves afterwards. And and also because of the amendment to Amendment 13, they basically turned the labor of slavery into free labor that prisoners had to do. So multiple in a modern context. This is the reason why we talk about these issues so many times because even in our modern time, the effects of Juneteenth and others still affect Americans today. And
Yeah,
you need to make sure that we are not just stuck on social media, stuck on our feed, and we are not being educated on how the sins of the past still affect us today, even though we are celebrating this day of liberation and freedom.
absolutely, 100%. So Lawrence, I think let's maybe take just a quick little break. I'm gonna take a quick little break for coffee. We come back. We got we got a lot more to talk about here on the program, and um, I want to let y'all know again. You can find us online, Media Cyphers Kalamazoo. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. You could also find us on whatever podcasting app that you use. Just the number 4 podcast in Kalamazoo, by the way.
Yeah, no
It's
bragging, no
I'm
bragging.
just
Yeah.
gonna bring that
Humble
up real quick.
bragging.
Yeah. So yeah, you can find us all that way. Keep it dialogue. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution. Hello. Hello again, everybody out there in Radio Land. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers, only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. Once again, joined by my co-host Lawrence, and I want to do just a quick hit. So while we're still kind of talking about stuff here in Kalamazoo, and so it's also this article was written by a former Media Cyphers correspondent, I guess, Aya Miller. You might remember they came on our show a few times a few years ago, and they graduated and are since now a journalist with M Live. So again, we've had some pretty
Hey,
accomplished people come out of this program. So, but they wrote an article, and I thought it was really interesting, especially tying into we ran an article last week about kind of Michigan and its disaster funds in the context of these recurring climate disasters. And I thought this was, I'm going to read between some of the lines in this article, and it kind of talks about the intersection of disasters and capitalism and how it can really be draining for a community. So, the headline of this article: neighborhood was known for its 100-year-old trees until a tornado wiped out hundreds. And I do recommend folks read the whole piece. It's kind of, it really puts a human face on all of the storm and tornado damage that's been going on out that again, Portage's been hit hard, as well as some other places in Southwest Michigan. But Colony Woods is a neighborhood that used to be a tree sanctuary, and that's kind of the hook of the neighborhood. It's like you're basically living in a neighborhood slash forest, and a lot of these trees um, are more than 100 years old, can be like 60 feet tall, and they were just flattened by some of the storm activity that recently happened. But what I want to point out is kind of how the people in this neighborhood are being left with the bill. Um, so if the tree isn't touching personal property, insurance companies won't pay for it. Even if it is, insurance will only pay for a section to be removed. Insurance paid for quote unquote just silly stuff like an umbrella falling and a destroyed playset, but it wouldn't pay to remove a tree hanging over the house because it wasn't touching personal property. The Alexanders are friends with J&B Tree Services, so they got a good deal on tree removal. Plus, they received help from the community to clear their yard. Alexander estimates they spent $10,000 to $15,000 so far, with only some coming from their insurance deductible. Not everyone's bill was so low. One resident had 50 trees in their yard toppled. The bill was likely in the six figures, O'Rourke said. And it kind of goes on to talk about how some of these tree services are more trustworthy than others, but some have been engaging in price gouging. Not long after the Portage tornado, Dana Nessel filed a lawsuit against several tree removal companies for misleading practices conducted after the 2022 tornado in Gaylord. So that is a prescient concern. And outside of these really expensive tree removal services, there have been some organizations doing the good work of trying to help with this. A volunteer group from Lutheran Church Charities are helping remove trees from families who can't afford these like some way at times upward of $100,000 tree removal services. To quote, one homeowner showed resident O'Day a $50,000 tree removal estimate before Lutheran Catholic Charities cleared their yard, and they said that's just ridiculous. Now, the main thing I want to point out here is, Colony Woods is they're not. It's not like a necessarily a poor neighborhood. Some of these people can afford these bills, but even for somebody on the upper end of the middle class, $100,000, that's like that's maybe your entire savings, even more so. And I'm also just kind of thinking through too, Kalamazoo, so the smaller metro area has been fairly lucky, but we live in a lot of tree-heavy, densely packed neighborhoods. And I was trying to think through, like, some of the homeowners in the Edison and the North Side who are thoroughly working class, and if they had to deal with tree damage like this, like, man, there'd be no way that you'd be able to be paying bills upwards of 20, 50, $100,000. And having to depend on charity is not necessarily right either. And I guess what I'm really getting at here is, why isn't the state, the federal government, the city stepping up to help with these tree removal service, that when people can only turn to these private companies who necessarily are charging exorbitant amounts in order to get these trees removed? And I mean, that's not even necessarily the fault of these companies. I'm not saying they're amoral for engaging in the system we live in. What I am saying is it's kind of ridiculous that people who are faced with an unprecedented crisis and they're literally in their backyard have to go into incredible amounts of debt in response to what is a natural phenomenon.
Yeah, speaking as a resident on the north side, uh, the last storm that we just had, there are trees that are on the power lines. There are tree branches that are still hanging off of the power lines. Um, in my neighborhood, giant branches. Um, it is, it's not safe. It's not safe. And this goes back to some of the stories that we were talking about during the pandemic of corporations knowing that they can price gouge because they are getting away with they know price gouging and knowing they can get away with it. I remember us talking about Applebee's doing that. There were grocery stores that were doing that, and now we have private services like this also doing that. Like it makes you when I hear stories like this, it makes me want to be like, all right, look, I'm gonna just go to Lowe's or Home Depot, get an axe, and do it myself because that's insane.
No, yeah, for real. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to touch on that quickly because it relates to some of the kind of storm coverage we've been talking about lately, and I think it really puts a fine point on like, yeah, if you rely on the private sector, um, people are either going to go into crippling debt, or again, there's going to be hazards popping up like you just described. So yeah. Again, you can find that article that's on M Live, written by Media Cypher alone, Aya Miller. Neighborhood was known for its 100-year-old trees until a tornado wiped out hundreds. So
Mm.
Lawrence, what did you want to hit on next?
All right, we're going from local news. We're going from local news to national news. Today is Tuesday, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, and we talked about this before about AIPAC and its influencing American politics. Tuesday, New York, very big day. Because Jamal Bowman, one of the representatives of the squad, is going up against Gary George Latimer, a AIPAC backed Republican funded right wing Democrat. And when I say Republican funded, AIPAC and its affiliate groups are getting donations from Trump supporting Republicans to get this member of the squad out of Congress. And if this happens, now they've done it before. When we talked about it with Nina Turner, we talked about it with other people that when AIPAC sets their eye on Senate seats or congressional seats, they will spend millions of dollars. They've already spent $14 million against Jamal Bowman to get him out of his seat because Jamal Bowman told the truth about what Israel's doing in Gaza and also in the West Bank. There's a story that we're going to talk about a little later that is insane. But Jamal Bowman, the primaries today, if you were phone baking, if you were donating, if you can get the word out to your friends and family and colleagues that live in New York, tell them to go out if you live out in that district, in Jamal's district, to go and vote because Latimer is and he goes against all of the principles and things that we talk about as progressives, as people who are leftists. He does not stand for any of the things that we stand for. He only will do the bidding of his donors. And Jamal Bowman, you may not like all of his politics. I personally don't like all of his politics, but he's right on the majority of his politics. And he's facing George Latimer, and he needs to stay. We need to support the people who are not taking corporate PAC money and super PAC money, like Jamal. We have to support people who support and believe in our ideology and in our strategies. So yeah, that's the only thing we need to make sure to watch this election and see if he's gonna, and hope and pray that he's gonna make it. I hope and pray that he does.
Yeah, I think something that's worth pointing out too. So some of my comrades out there who are a little bit more cynical about elections. You know, part of this is it's kind of a line in the sand. Jamal Bowman, he is very popular in his district. He's well liked. He and it's this is almost it's an experiment from AIPAC to see if like we just cram as much money as we can into this district, can we just unseat somebody through brute force who has
Yeah.
come out against the genocide in Gaza? And
This is the most expensive congressional race in American history. 14 million. They spent 14 million against this guy.
so in a situation like that, the election of or the seat of somebody like Jamal Bowman almost becomes more of a barometer of people power to see can people actively keep this person seated in Congress, who as I mentioned is again very progressive, as you mentioned, also is spoken out against the genocide in Gaza, but it is an important kind of battleground to make sure that we can keep people in Congress who are willing to speak up against the atrocities going on in that part of the world right now. Because if Bowman does get unseated, the message that sends is you need to shut up about what's going on in Gaza, or we will unseat you. And it's interesting. Like AOC actually came out and said this on Twitter recently. Kind of one of the more unspoken things in Congress is that AIPAC doesn't have as much influence as it does because it directly funds everybody and all these politicians. It's kind of the sphere they generate are saying like if you speak up against the IDF or Israel, etc., speaking out against what they're doing in Gaza, AIPAC will buy you out of Congress, and there's that kind of
Yeah,
palpable fear.
it's the Pablo Escobar way of doing business. It's like, hey, we're going to be spending this money on political ads. Now we can spend this money for you to keep you in power, or we can spend this money against you and take you out. It is like to say it's not to not respect its gangsters, like all the lobbying groups do it, right? The
Mhm.
big oil does it, big pharma does it, uh, you know, uh gun lobbyists. We've seen how the gun lobby has had Republican politicians shook, right? Uh so it's not that a because APEC uh is a organization that solely focuses on Israel and Israeli politics in America. I'm not trying to I'm trying to, in the best way, to get people to understand. This isn't a anti-Semitic trope of saying that Israel is controlling, that Jewish people are controlling politicians with their money. We're not doing that. We're talking about a lobbying group that's whole job is to influence politicians with their money. No different from any other lobbying group. They just happen to be associated with Israel and Israel's politics, and they have done it before. They have done it before in multiple other races. But yeah, if you think that they're going to stop with Jamal Bowman, do you not think that Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, AOC, Cori Bush, you think they're not going to be coming for them next? Ro Khanna and others,
I
they
know
will be
they've
coming
been
for.
particularly looking at Cori Bush too.
Yeah, yeah, like they're everyone who's in our body politics that actually cares about the issues that we talk about, that fight for the issues that we talk about, they will come for them next. It's not even close.
Yeah, I do recall a primary. I can't remember if it was the last cycle or the cycle before that where, um, the DCCC tried really hard to primary Rashida, and they just got absolutely clowned. Like they
Oh,
poured so much money in that race, and I think it was like the margin was like 70-30 or something embarrassing
yeah.
like that. But
Like,
this,
dog, they just to show you their hand. I remember us talking about uh uh the DCCC blackballing contributors and workers that primaried incumbents. If you were in DC or you were affiliated with people who wanted to primary incumbents, they would blackball you. They would try their best to make sure you did not work in body politics again. But when it came to people that they want to get out, when it comes to people like, again, Jamal Bowman is a sitting congressperson. He's someone who's now being primaried, and the DCCC, and others, like Hillary Clinton came out and endorsed George Latimer. When Hillary Clinton endorses you, it's kind of a bad sign that you don't want to support that person. I'm just
yeah,
saying. I'm
yeah.
just saying.
Well,
Uh, yeah, and Montel Jones, like the other New York politician, like, nah, he who tried to steal Jamal Bowman's seat before, couldn't, got kicked out, lost his seat, and now he's endorsing Latimer. Like, come on, man. Like, we see the writing. We see the writing.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I kind of just pointing out like there's the hypocrisy of corporate Democrats because I remember a few years ago like they were just crying foul and just frothing at the mouth with anger about like groups like Justice Democrats and the rest of it's like you can't primary incumbents. That's but like
Yeah.
again you have Jamal Bowman who's established in Congress and like there's this unprecedented effort to primary him, and they're all just like, "What? Well, huh?" I was like, "Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
fine."
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna look the other way for this one.
Democracy.
Yeah, it's absolute
Uh,
garbage. Absolute garbage.
yeah.
Um, we have to get to this Israel story. From going from local news to national news to international news. I don't know if you saw it in the news feed. Um, this is just a quick hit for me. There's been stories about a rape that's been going on in assault that's been going on with the prisoners that Israel has had. This is a trigger warning for everybody who got know.
This is going to
Um,
be some grim stuff. Yeah.
yeah, very, very not safe for work content that we're about to bring up. Uh, there's been reports that Israel has been sodomizing and raping their prisoners, and they've been also sicking dogs on them. Um, multiple reports from multiple reports from different outlets has been saying that Israel that some inmates has had limbs amputated because they've been tied up so long. They've been sodomized and sexually assaulted. This is reporting from The Intercept and others, and the BBC, and much more recently, they've been sicking dogs on them. Like it is crazy war crime. Like the International Criminal Courts, when they were saying that what Israel's been doing to the civilians and people that they have captured are war crime materials, and people equate what they're doing to Nazi levels of torture. Yeah, yeah. This it is it is very it is eerily similar and parallel when you read the things that they did in Auschwitz and in other concentration camps during World War II. That that the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, are doing a lot of the same type of torture to Palestinian prisoners. It is grim and dark. It's ugly. That's all I can say.
It's it's dehumanization 101, and again, these are all verified reports coming out, some from IDF whistleblowers talking about how the prisoners have been treated on these facilities, and yeah, like again, not the prisoners not allowed to speak to each other, they're neglecting medical needs, and everything else you just listed as well. Um, and I'm gonna probably mess this quote up, but there's that famous quote about like you can judge the morality of a society by how it treats its prisoners. And if it's any indication, the IDF and Israel, the Israeli government at the moment, are not on the right side of history, because the way that they're treating their prisoners right now is never looked kindly upon in history books.
Um, I'm gonna read this is from Ryan Grimm. If y'all don't know, Ryan Grimm is the bureau chief for the Hill. He is a fantastic reporter. He's also was a commentator for the Young Turks. I also think he's writes for the Intercept as well.
Yep,
Um,
really good, does good stuff. Yep.
yeah, he is. He's a journalist that I watch a lot of times because the man's out here doing the Lord's work. Um, this is from Suppressed News. Uh, I literally he's like he's retweeting this, and it's on Twitter. He's like, I literally cannot believe what I just heard. It in detention centers, uh, in the detention centers, concentration camps, Israel is using trained dogs to rape Palestinians. Dogs who uh, and and this is coming from Suppressed News. He tweeted it, and then he gives his commentary. Uh, what we heard from the detainees. There is torture with electrocution, um, as well as suspense stretching, uh, the pulling of fingernails, and bigger afflictions. We have heard from some detainees, which has been reported by more than one, that the occupants tortured um, that the occupation tortured them in a very sadistic and barbaric way, which has not been seen before in history of humanity, in which they've brought trained dogs and made these dogs carry out vile acts against the detainees. It's was not just one single detainee who told us the story, but there are witnesses. This is coming from the DG, the DG of the Gaza Health Ministry. Again, take that with a grain of salt but I don't think the Gaza Health Ministry would be lying. Yep. Again, take it with a grain of salt. But there's already been stories from the BBC, from from Reuters and others that some detainees died because they were made to sit on hot rods, hot pokers, and it penetrated them. It's like I don't know. I'm trying to think of a nice way of saying it, but it's not. There isn't a nice way of talking about it.
You read some of these articles and reports about how the IDF is treating its Palestinian prisoners, and it seems like something you would find in like a sadistic medieval novel. Like it's it, really some Black Ages stuff that's going on. That really I can think of very few comparisons other than as you mentioned, like places like Auschwitz. Um, because even it's like even like Abu Ghraib and stuff that was horrible and reprehensible, but like the level of like torture and brutality we're talking about here is just levels beyond that.
I mean, even when you read some of the things that they did to slaves in America, the torture that they did to slaves, yeah, it was brutal. We're on that type of timing. So much so that this is one of the stories that were breaking that even the Israelis had to walk back. This is happened in the West Bank. This is not even in Gaza. And I want you to remind everybody that Israel keeps saying that they want to defeat Hamas. Hamas is not in the West Bank, but this particular story comes out of the West Bank. Breaking: Israeli forces. This is in particular coming from CNN. Um, if Israeli forces shot a Palestinian, then tied him to the hood of his vehicle while he's injured and bleeding to be used as a human shield. This incident happened right now in the I don't know how to say Jabari neighborhood, Jihin in West Bank. They also prevented the ambulance from reaching the hospital to transport the wounded. So the Israeli forces shot a man, then tied that bleeding man to the hood of their car, and the other people that they have probably injured or shot that were in ambulances that were trying to get people to the hospital, they prevented from doing so. And this is in the West Bank, where they know Hamas isn't there. So you're not targeting Hamas in the West Bank. You're only targeting civilians. That's unacceptable. It's not okay.
Absolutely.
It's not cool.
Absolutely.
And if for some reason we can't say that's not cool, or for some reason we get blackballed, or Americans are getting blackballed or getting fired for saying shooting a human being, then tying them up to your vehicle to use them as a human shield is it's just the price of doing business, then nah, I don't want that price. I don't want y'all to do that. Especially if you're claiming to be the most moral army in the world. We've heard multiple stories about how Hamas uses human shields to defend themselves against IDF attacks. Hamas is not in the West Bank. So why are you shooting Palestinian civilians and then tying them to your car to use them as human shields when the people that you're supposed to be fighting are not there? That's like if I was fighting the Klan, right? Let's say like I wanted to fight the Klan, but I'm in Canada. I'm in Canada killing, and I killed an innocent civilian in Canada, and then tied that innocent civilian, and shot that innocent civilian, and then tied them to the hood of my car and drove around with them. But I'm fighting terrorists.
Yeah.
They're,
Mhm. So it's almost wondering, it's like who's the terrorist in this situation?
yeah,
But yeah.
who's the terrorist here?
Mhm.
Anyway,
I've got one more story that kind of looping back to the situation in Gaza. I think after that I might close out just a little bit early. I'm gonna kind of break for lunch before my next show. Um,
okay.
but I did want to bring this up. This is on the domestic sphere, but something that recently happened in Texas. Um, a woman attempted to murder two Palestinian children in a swimming pool.
Yeah, I
Um,
heard about that.
yeah, but this is kind of in the Dallas Fort Worth area. But basically, a drunk white racist woman, a drunk white racist woman, approached a approached a woman who was there with her two children. She was wearing a hijab. Started basically a bunch of expletives at her, and then she jumped in the pool and proceeded to try to drown her 6-year-old son and 3-year-old daughter. A good Samaritan came along and stopped the woman from basically killing these kids. And she was carted off to jail, which is good. But I think it goes to speak to, especially right after October 7th, we're talking about the increased anti-Arab and anti-Palestinian hate crimes that were happening. We had a guy near the Dearborn area talk about wanting to go to Dearborn and go on a shooting spree. And this level of reinforced bigotry and hatred can be very dangerous. It can be deadly. And when you have outlets like Fox News and even outlets like MSNBC and CNN who are claiming that all the student protesters are anti Semitic and that they're supporting terrorists and stuff like that, you get situations where this drunk, bigoted woman will attempt to straight up kill kids. That woman learned that hate from somewhere. It was probably some sort of bigoted radio or television station. And the responsibility for these kind of incidents falls on the people who are basically putting the gasoline or, setting the gasoline next to the fire. And, incidents like this show how quickly it can explode.
Yeah, that whenever you think if you ever think hurting children is the right thing to do, you have missed the plot. You've missed the plot. You need to go, you need to reevaluate. You need to go sit down somewhere. You need to go talk to Jesus. You need to go talk to Jesus alone in the corner somewhere away from the rest of society. Like
Yeah.
probably in a jail cell.
And it's like,
Go talk to them in
I've already heard some commentators like, well, she was intoxicated, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you know what happens when I get drunk? I go do karaoke or I take a nap. I don't try to
no.
murder children in a pool.
Can
That's
can we
that's
can we can we can we think about this in any other situation? If it wasn't a drunk Karen, but let's say it was uh a man named Ali Baka Salim. Ali Baka Salim tried to drown two Jewish kids in a pool. What do you think that? How do you think the media would take that story?
yeah. It's
Like,
well,
it's not the same. It's nowhere near close. We're not. It's not that we are trying to beat a dead horse or anything of the sort. It's that we need to be honest and also understand that we already have a racism issue in America. But Muslim hate in America is also at an all-time high. And also it's also very anti-Semitic. Let's also be very clear.
oh yeah.
And and it's not okay. It's not okay. It's not okay when they do it. It's not it wouldn't be okay if we do it. We just keep that same energy. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely. I think with that, we're gonna close out the show. Lawrence, thanks again for coming
I do want
on.
to talk about one last thing. One last
Oh,
thing. I do want to talk
yeah.
about thing.
Okay.
Uh Mehdi Hassan has his own YouTube channel. Um
Great reporter and commentator, by
Zeto Zeteo. He had an interview with Amanda Seal. He has a bunch of fantastic commentary. Um, One of the things that he did, he had what's the interview? I'm trying to find it. He had an interview with the former president, the man who ran for president. I forgot the guy's name. And
Uh,
I can't think of it to
where
save my life.
who ran for president? The
Yeah, it was God, I can't think of him.
where what country? It's
It was a dude. I'm trying to find it. I'm trying to find it. Hold on, just give me a second. Um, the interview is on Palestine. And he basically asked him the same thing that I said. He was talking about Israel killing over 200 civilians to get four Israeli hostages, and he basically asked him to his face the reverse. He said, "Would you be okay if Palestine killed 200 Israeli civilians to get four Palestinian prisoners?" And the system reboot that the guy had on his face
oh man,
is
yeah.
worth watching. Go check it out. Go check it out. The man's a fantastic reporter. Also, Katie Halper had a live stream. Shout out to her because she's also a fantastic reporter. She had Brianna Joy Gray and Mark Lamont Hill on, and they talked about how they've been, fired for talking about Palestine and Israel, and that whole conversation. It's worth watching. Check it out. Those are my quick hits.
All right, Lawrence, thank you. And we'll link to that in the show notes.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you again for listening. We're going to close out just a little bit early. Stay tuned. Electropop therapy is next. Quick reminder, if you like what you've heard, you didn't hear the thing, you can find us on YouTube, Media Cyphers, Kalamazoo podcast. You can find on most podcasting apps. We're also on Facebook. Thanks for listening. Until next time, keep on fighting for that revolution solution. All right, Lawrence. Thanks, man. I'll catch you later.
All right, man. Holla at you.
All right, see you.